Hello, and thanks for clicking on this next Algebra 1 production. Today, we are going to talk about polynomial definitions. So these are just some definitions that you need to know in this chapter. Um, they really are just things that you have to memorize. You have to know them off the top of your head. And we're going to work with them and see how they all work. There's nothing here that I think is too complicated. So let's get started and take a look at what we have to work with. Okay, so let's review some vocabulary first. So we have a variable. So a variable is just a letter that represents a number. All right, it's just a letter that represents a number. Now, in polynomial land, there's a lot of different ways to write a variable. So you could have a variable called, so here's some examples of variables. We have x is a variable, right? Y could be a variable. But there's also other variables. So if we put powers on some of these, like for example, x squared, that's a variable. Okay, y squared, that's a variable. X to the fifth, that's a variable. All right. So now our variables don't just have to be single letters. They can also be letters raised to powers. Okay. So that's a little different than what we've normally done. A constant is just a number without a variable. So, it's literally a number without a variable. 4, -2, 10, those are all constants. Coefficient is a number multiplied by a variable. So, for example, if I had, 4x, 4 is my coefficient, okay? 7x squared, 7 is my coefficient. -3x, -3 is my coefficient. If I have x, then 1 is my coefficient. There's a 1 before the x, you just don't see it. Okay? So that's an example of a coefficient. All these definitions you've seen before. All right, so let's talk about what a monomial is. So a monomial is a number, a variable, or the product of a number and a variable, where all the exponents are whole numbers. Okay? So these are examples of monomials right down here. We have 5x, right? It's a number times a variable. 25 is just a number. A to the third, remember on the last slide we said that's a variable now. A to the third is a variable by itself. 4b to the second. 4 would be the coefficient, right, of b to the second, which is my variable. Okay, y, the coefficient of y is a 1. There's a 1 there, you don't see it. And 19x. All right. And now you can create two monomials of your own, anything that you want. Okay? All right, so now, if we know what a monomial is, mono is the prefix meaning one. Okay, so you can see we have one term, right? One of these each, yeah? Okay. If I put them together, I get a polynomial. So a polynomial, poly, is the prefix that means many. So a polynomial is many monomials, all right, that are added or subtracted. Okay, so for example, c to the second plus d, that's a monomial, that's a monomial. When I add them together, it makes a polynomial. Okay, here's a monomial 7, there's a monomial b, there's a monomial c squared, there's a monomial 4d to the third. If I add them all, it makes a polynomial. Many monomials added or subtracted. Okay, each one of these is called a term, right? So you've done that before as well. Everything that's added or subtracted is a term. So this polynomial here has 1, 2, 3, 4 terms. Okay, there's 4 terms in that polynomial. This polynomial has 1, 2. There's two things that are added and subtracted. There's two terms there. All right, we're going to talk about that a little bit later on. Okay, but that's the example of a polynomial. All right. Okay, now let's talk about some more definitions now for polynomials. The degree of a polynomial is the largest variable exponent in the polynomial. That's the degree of the polynomial. It's the largest variable exponent. Okay, so for example, if I said 4x to the fifth minus 3x squared plus 2, that's a polynomial. This polynomial is degree 5. It's the largest of the variable exponents. That's x to the fifth. You have x raised to the second, and then you don't have an x at all. So this polynomial would be degree 5. If I had negative 7x to the fourth minus 2x to the third plus 5x, this would be degree 4. Of the variables and their exponents, the largest exponent is a 4, because there's a 4, there's a 3 here. This one, there's a 1 up there, you don't see it, but the largest of the 3 variable exponents is a 4, so we consider it degree 4. Okay? All right, now, what we have is we have names for the degrees of a polynomial. If your polynomial is degree 0, the polynomial is called a constant. Okay? So here's an example of a constant. 5. There are no variables, so there's no variable exponents. Okay? Here's another example. Negative 2. There's no variables, there's no variable exponents. These are considered degree 0, and their name would be constant. If the highest degree is 1, the polynomial is considered linear. So degree 1 looks like this, 3x plus 7. All right, there's a variable here, there's an x, there's no exponent on it, so there's really a 1 there, we don't see it. And the highest variable exponent here is that 1. So this is degree 1. We call it linear. If the highest degree is 2, the polynomial is quadratic. Okay, these are all definitions. They're all names. You're going to have to know them. If I had 5x to the second minus 10, I look at my variables. I only have one variable here, and its exponent is a 2. So this is degree 2. If it's degree 2, we call it quadratic. The highest degree is 3. The polynomial is cubic. So degree 3, we could have 4x to the third minus 2x plus 5. So this first x term is to the third power. The second x term is just to the first power. And the third term, the 5, doesn't even have an x. So the largest variable exponent is 3. We call this degree 3. Degree 3 is called cubic. The leading coefficient is the coefficient of the term that has the highest degree. So let's look at some of the examples that we just looked at. If I had 3x plus 7, 3x plus 7 is degree 1. There's a 1 on top of that exponent. The leading coefficient is 3. That's the number in front of the variable that has the degree on it. If I had, let's make one up, negative 8x to the third plus 2x squared plus 4x. Okay, let's look for the degree first. The degree is going to be the highest of the variable exponents. We got a 3 there. We got a 2 there. There's a 1 there. We don't see it. So 3 is the degree. We call that cubic. And then the leading coefficient would be -8. That's the number in front of that variable that has the degree. All of the polynomials that we have written here have been in standard form. All like terms have been combined, and the exponents are in descending order from biggest to smallest. Okay, so standard form, 4x to the fifth plus 8x to the fourth minus 3x to the third plus 5x squared minus 8x plus 1. Look at the variable exponents, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. So they're in order. That's what we mean by standard form. You can also skip as long as you stay in the correct order. So we could have negative 7x to the fourth minus 2x squared plus 8x. We got 4, 2, 1. There's no 3. That's okay. We're allowed to skip. And there's no constant. That's okay. We're allowed to skip. Okay? That's standard form. All of our answers in this chapter are going to be written in standard form. Okay? So we're going to practice that a lot. We're also going to practice classifying by degree and naming leading coefficients as well. We're going to continue practicing that as well coming up. Okay, so let's start with some questions here. I have 4x squared plus 6x plus 3. Let's talk about the coefficients. Remember, coefficients are the numbers in front of the variables. So that's 4 and 6. The constants are the numbers by themselves. There's only one number by itself with no variable. That's 3. The leading coefficient. All right, let's see. This is in standard form. We have a 2 on that variable, a 1 on that variable, and then the 3 doesn't have a variable. So it's 2, 1, 0. Okay, so it's in standard form. The leading coefficient is in front of that first term there, which is going to be 4. That's my leading coefficient. And then my degree is the largest variable exponent. I got 2, I got 1, I got 0. It's degree 2. We call degree 2 quadratic. Okay. Now, you folks should try this one over here on the right-hand side. Just pause it, and then you can go through and make sure you got it right real quick. Skip to the end of it and make sure you got it right. So the coefficients are in front of the variables 5, -8, and 7. The constants, the numbers by themselves, are -9. Got to carry the negative signs along. The leading coefficient, are they in order? 3, 2, 1, 0. Yeah, they're in order. So the leading coefficient is going to be 5. And then the degree, the largest variable exponent is 3, and we call that cubic. Okay? So there's a short couple of examples there. All right. Let's take this polynomial and rewrite it in standard form. All we want to do is put the variable exponents in order from biggest to smallest. We're going to take the coefficients with us. We're going to rearrange the terms. Okay, so what comes first? There's a 1 there. 1, 0, 4, and 2. So -3x to the fourth comes first. So I'm going to cross it out as I go. Next is 2x squared plus 2x squared. Then we have plus 5x to the first, or 5x. And then finally, -4. That's in standard form. There it is. We wrote it in standard form. Okay, the constant term is the number by itself, -4. The leading coefficient, let's make sure they're in order. 4, 2, 0. They're in order. The leading coefficient is 2, the number in front of the variable with the highest exponent. It's degree 4. Now, we don't have a name for degree 4 in this class, so we just call it fourth degree. Okay, we would call this a fourth degree. All right. And then in B, are they in order? 3, 2, 1, 0. Yeah, they're in order. So the leading coefficient is -1, right? There's a 1 there. We don't say it. It's -1. And then we have, if we want to find the degree is 3, and we call it cubic. Okay, so these are how you're using these definitions. All we're doing is using the definitions to try to name things. Okay, you can also classify polynomials by the number of terms they have. A monomial is a polynomial with one term. Mono is the prefix for one. So one term would be like 4x. That's one term. A binomial, bi like bicycle, okay, meaning two wheels. A polynomial with two terms. So a polynomial with two terms might be 3x to the second plus 7x. That's got two terms, two things added together, the 3x squared and the 7x. A trinomial, like a tricycle, 3. So a polynomial with three terms. So that might be like 5x to the sixth minus 2x squared plus 8. That's a trinomial. Okay? We can figure out the degrees for each one of these if you wanted, right? This first one is degree 1. It's linear. This second one here, biggest variable exponent is 2. It's degree 2, quadratic. And this third one would be degree 6. We don't have a name for that. We just call it 6th degree. All right, let's try to put everything together. Let's find the degree of this polynomial. We're going to write it in standard form first. We're going to put it in order. Here we go. Biggest variable exponent to the smallest. So we start with negative 3x to the 5th. Cross it out. Then we have plus 6x to the 4th. And next is going to be negative 8x, right? That's to the first. Cross that out. And then plus 10, it's last. What's the degree? Biggest variable exponent is 5. We just call it 5th degree. Okay? Classify the polynomials by number of terms. We need to give the word. So number of terms means how many things are being added and subtracted. 1, 2, 3. This has 3 terms. 3 terms is a trinomial, like a tricycle. Letter B has 1, 2. 2 terms. This is a binomial, 2 terms, like a bicycle, 2 wheels. Okay. Classify the polynomial by degree. Give the word and the number of terms. Here we go. So let's make sure it's in standard form. 2, 1, no variable. Okay, good. It's in order. Variables are in order. So this is degree 2. We call degree 2 quadratic. You have to know all these names. All right. And then, and the number of terms. So this has, how many things are being added and subtracted? 1, 2, 3. So this has 3 terms. This is a trinomial. So we would call this a quadratic trinomial when we put it together. Okay, this one here, are they in order? Yeah, they're in order. So that's degree 3. We call degree 3 cubic. And then it has 1, 2 terms, 2 things being added and subtracted. We call this a binomial. So this is a cubic binomial. That's its name. All right. All right, one more set. All right, let's try to put it all together. Let's try to put it in standard form. Okay, and classify it by degree and number of terms. Here we go. So you folks should try. Make sure that you can do it, and then you can check your answers with what I have here. And that way you make sure you're getting it right. And if you're not, you can see how it's done. So we have 9 plus 3y squared minus 2y. Let's put them in order. 3y squared comes first. Remember, looking for the biggest variable exponent to the smallest. Negative 2y comes next, and then the plus 9 comes last. So this is degree 2. We call that quadratic. Right, degree 2. And then it has 1, 2, 3 terms. 3 terms. This is a trinomial. This is a quadratic trinomial. For the second one, put them in order. Biggest variable exponent to the smallest. Negative 3y to the fourth comes first, and the plus 18 comes second. So this is degree 4. So this is a fourth degree. We don't have a name for it in this class. And then there are two terms. Binomial, like a bicycle. So it's a fourth degree binomial. All right, and the last one here, it's going to take a lot of work to put it in order. Let's look. We're looking for the biggest variable exponent down to the smallest. So we got 8x to the sixth, that's first. Negative 2x to the fourth is next. Let's cross them out. Plus 7x to the second. Good. Then we got 3x to the first, or 3x. And then finally minus 7. Let's just check, make sure. 6, 4, 2, 1, 0. Okay, good. So they're in order. So this is degree 6. So this is a sixth degree. And then it has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 terms. So it's a sixth degree, 5-term polynomial is what we call it. All right, nothing fancy. Sixth degree, 5-term polynomial. Okay? All right, and that's it. Okay? And as always, thanks for clicking.